Francis of Assisi was born around 1181 to Pietro di Bernard dei Morricone, a prosperous Italian silk merchant, and Pica di Beaumont, a French noblewoman originally from Provence. While little is known about his mother, she is remembered for her noble lineage and piety. Indulged by his wealthy parents, Francis lived a high-spirited life typical of a privileged young man. He was charming, handsome, witty, and gallant, with a deep appreciation for music, poetry, and fine clothes. He admired the troubadours and was fascinated with French culture, all things transalpine, often spending money lavishly and enjoying the pleasures of the world. However, signs of inner transformation appeared early. In one story, while selling cloth and velvet in the marketplace on behalf of his father, a beggar approached him for alms. At the end of his business dealings, Francis chased down the man and gave him everything he had in his purse. His friends mocked him, and his father scolded him harshly for such behavior. In 1202, Francis joined a military expedition against Perugia and was captured at Collestrada. He spent a year in captivity, during which illness caused him to reflect deeply on his life. Though he returned to his old lifestyle in 1203, another turning point came in 1205 when he set out to join the army of Walter III, Count of Brienne, in Apulia. A strange vision led him to abandon this path and return to Assisi, disillusioned with worldly pursuits. He began to avoid the feasts and entertainments of his former companions. When asked if he planned to marry, Francis replied, "Yes, a fairer bride than any of you have ever seen," referring to his spiritual devotion to Lady Poverty. On a pilgrimage to Rome, he joined beggars outside St. Peter's Basilica, experiencing firsthand the humility of poverty. Upon returning, he spent time in solitude, praying for divine guidance. While praying in the dilapidated chapel of San Damiano just outside Assisi, he had a mystical vision. The icon of the crucified Christ spoke to him, saying, "Francis, Francis, go and repair my church which, as you can see, is falling into ruins." Believing this referred to the physical structure, he sold cloth from his father's shop to help repair the chapel. When the priest refused to accept the money due to its dubious source, Francis indignantly threw the coins on the floor. To escape his father's fury, Francis hid in a cave near San Damiano for about a month. When he returned, dirty and weak, he was beaten and locked up by his father. His mother freed him during his father's absence, and Francis immediately returned to San Damiano. Eventually, his father brought legal charges against him, seeking to force him to relinquish his inheritance. In a dramatic moment before the Bishop of Assisi, Francis publicly renounced his father and all his worldly possessions. Some accounts say he removed his clothes in token of this renunciation, and the bishop compassionately covered him with his own cloak. For the next few months, Francis lived as a beggar, wandering the hills around Assisi. He worked briefly at a nearby monastery and later traveled to Gubbio, where a friend gave him the robe and staff of a pilgrim. He returned to Assisi, collecting stones to rebuild the chapel of San Damiano with his own hands. Over the next 2 years, Francis lived as a penitent, restoring several ruined chapels in the countryside. These included San Pietro in Spina near modern River Torto and, most significantly, the Porziuncola, the little chapel of St. Mary of the Angels in the plain below Assisi, which later became his beloved refuge. As he embraced this new life of simplicity, humility, and service, Francis also began caring for lepers in the colonies around Assisi, those he once feared and avoided. His journey of faith, poverty, and charity had begun in earnest. While praying on Mount La Verna during a 40-day fast in preparation for the Feast of Michaelmas, the 29th of September, Francis is said to have received a profound and mystical vision. On the 17th of September, 1224, just 3 days after the Feast of the Exaltation of the Cross, Francis reportedly had a vision of a seraph, a six-winged angel, on a cross. As a result of this vision, he received the stigmata, the 5 wounds of Christ. Brother Leo, who was with him at the time, provided the first clear and direct account of this miraculous event. He wrote, "Suddenly he saw a vision of a seraph, a six-winged angel on a cross. This angel gave him the gift of the 5 wounds of Christ." This marked the first documented instance of stigmata in Christian history. Following this, Francis suffered greatly, not only from the stigmata but also from trachoma, a painful eye disease. He sought medical care in several cities, including Siena, Cortona, and Nocera, but none brought relief. Eventually, his condition deteriorated to the point of blindness. The Bishop of Ostia ordered an operation on Francis's eyes, which involved cauterizing them with hot irons. Remarkably, Francis claimed to have felt no pain during the procedure. In his final days, Francis was brought back to a simple hut near the Porziuncola, his beloved chapel of St. Mary of the Angels. There, he dictated his spiritual testament, sharing his final reflections. On the evening of Saturday, the 3rd of October, 1226, Francis passed away peacefully, singing Psalm 141, Voce mea ad Dominum, with my voice I cry out to the Lord. Less than 2 years later, on the 16th of July, 1228, Pope Gregory IX, formerly Cardinal Ugolino di Conti and a close friend of Francis, formally declared him a saint. The very next day, the Pope laid the foundation stone for the Basilica of St. Francis in Assisi. On the 25th of May, 1230, Francis's body was buried beneath the lower basilica. However, to protect the saint's remains from possible theft or desecration by Saracen invaders, Brother Elias ordered the tomb to be concealed. It remained hidden for centuries until rediscovery in 1818. Pasquale Belli then built a crypt in the lower basilica to house the remains. Between 1927 and 1930, architect Ugo Tarquini redesigned the crypt into its current form. In 1978, a commission of scholars appointed by Pope Paul VI examined and confirmed the authenticity of Francis's remains. They were placed in a glass urn and returned to the ancient stone tomb where they remain to this day, a sacred site of pilgrimage and reverence.